Do you ever wonder what would happen if you asked an AI chatbot what woodworking tools you should buy? Well, I did.
I'm a talking robot. You can trust me.
So this isn't going to be one of your typical tool review videos. It's more like a test to see if artificial intelligence can make good or even passable tool suggestions to new woodworkers. It was simple, really. I just went to a popular AI chatbot and asked, "Hey robot, I'm a new woodworker. What are 5 tools I should have in my workshop? Specific recommendations, please." Then it spit out 5 tools and why I should buy those. And yes, I'm not going to show you the results right now because I'm no dummy. I'm not going to spoil the rest of the video right at the beginning. Just hold your horses. And whatever the chatbot suggested, I bought, spending over $400 of my own money. So this video is sponsored by me. All right, so now that you know that I have skin in the game, here's how this is going to go down. I tried out each of the 5 tools in this box as well as did my own research on them. And from that, I'm going to grade the chatbot by deciding, is this a tool that I'd recommend to you, or is it rubbish and I would suggest getting something else? Pretty simple, right? All right, so let's see the first item in the box. We've got a DeWalt 7 1/4 corded circular saw. Okay, so DeWalt, that's a brand I know. I've got a lot of their cordless power tools, so I'm very familiar with the quality and the performance that they put into the brand. Now, as far as a circular saw goes, I think this is a great option for the first saw purchase if you're just getting into woodworking or DIY. It's really a versatile tool, and it's a great way to bridge the gap between starting out and making a more significant investment in something like a miter saw or a table saw or even upgrading to a track saw. Coming in at around $160, it's very affordable compared to its more expensive cousin, the track saw. But unlike a track saw, there's no guide rail system for making perfect straight cuts, which I think is an important thing for woodworkers. But that's okay, this is something that you can work around by making yourself a guide for straight cuts out of plywood like this one, or by using a metal straight edge. This saw is lightweight at just over 8 pounds, and it's got an electric brake, which is a really nice safety feature compared to saws which just wind down slowly after you let off the trigger. It can cut up to 57-degree bevels, and it's got this built-in blower for cleaning the sawdust away from your sight lines, which I think is a really nice addition. I had no problem cutting both sheet goods, 2x4s, and thick hardwood lumber, which is everything I'd ever want to do with this saw in my shop. The one drawback for me, which is true of really any circular saw, is that dust collection is basically non-existent. These tools were really designed to be used outside and don't really have the features for good dust collection like a track saw has. Now, I don't see this as a deal breaker though, especially considering the price difference between the two. Just wear a good dust mask and eyewear and be prepared to clean up when you're done. And this being a corded tool is not that big of a deal for use in the shop. I mean, all of my track saws have cords and I use them just fine. But there is a cordless model that you can buy for not that much more money if you buy the bare tool. And it does have a slightly smaller 6.5-inch blade, but you can still cut 2 inches worth of material with it, but get the convenience of being able to take this saw anywhere and not have to worry about being near a power source. All right, so overall, I think this is a pretty solid recommendation. DeWalt's a really good brand name, and I think this saw has some nice features. Personally, I'd go with the cordless model, which is what I actually did, but that's because I use a circular saw mostly outside, and I don't really want to drag a power cord all along the ground as I'm working. But if you're buying this saw as a first-time woodworker to use in your shop, I definitely recommend it.
I trust you.
I trust you too.
All right, let's see what we got next in the box. It is a 12-inch combo square from Swanson. Now, my initial thoughts are that a combo square is a great first-time tool purchase because it's so versatile. But I can already tell you, I've got a problem with this recommendation, which I'll explain in a minute. But first, let's talk about why I think a combo square should be on the list. So there are lots of types of squares that I recommend that you have in your shop, and here are a few examples of those. They all have different things that they excel at, but there's a reason why I suggest going with a combo square first, and it's right there in the name. First off, a combo square is a great tool for marking both 90 and 45-degree references on your work with these reference edges. You can also use it to verify a 90-degree in a tool setup. The steel blade is removable, and it can be used both as a ruler or as a straight edge. And the 45-degree reference is also good for setting up your saw blades for bevel cuts or verifying that your miter saw's 45-degree detent is accurate. You can also use it for setting up blade and bit heights like this, or even setting the depth first and doing it like this. It's also good for marking reference lines at different distances. It can be a depth gauge, and most have a built-in level and a scribing tool if you don't have a pencil or a knife handy. So as I already mentioned, I think a combo square is a great first-time tool purchase, but I think the chatbot really whiffed on recommending this particular combo square, and here's why. With marking and measuring tools, I tend to look at them in one of three tiers, beginning with the lowest tier, which is the mass market consumer grade squares. These are going to be found all over the big box stores and have brand names like Irwin, Empire, Johnson, and Swanson. They're going to be made out of cheaper, lighter weight materials, sometimes even plastic, and they're going to range in price from $10 to $25. Now, these are going to be the least accurate of all of the squares, and a lot of times they don't even advertise on their packaging or online how off square their tolerances are. These are really good for DIY use or general construction, but I would absolutely avoid them when it comes to using them in your shop. Then there's the upper tier, the machinist caliber squares, where money is no object in the pursuit of accuracy. Brands like Starrett and Woodpecker invest heavily in materials, manufacturing, and quality control that allow them to pump out high quality, ridiculously accurate tools. This Starrett that I inherited from my grandfather is about 40 years old, but if you were to buy one brand new today, it would cost you around $200. And I think these are simply not needed for woodworking. You just don't have to be that accurate when you're working with a material that's going to move naturally on its own. And yes, I'm fully aware that I've got a whole wall of woodpecker squares, but that's going to be the subject of a future video. And then there's the mid-tier products, the Goldilocks zone, if you will. Now, these companies are going to invest just enough engineering and quality control to show that they actually care about their products, but not quite to the machinist level of anal retentiveness. The result is you're going to pay about 2 to 3 times more than the mass market squares, but only about 1/2 to 1/3 of the price of the upper tier products. Some good brands in this tier are PEC, iGaging, and Benchmark, and I think this is the exact tier that you should be shopping in because it's going to give you a high enough level of accuracy for the type of work that you're going to do.
Still don't trust me, huh? You can trust anything.
All right, next recommendation is a set of chisels from Narex. Now, Narex is a very solid brand of chisels. The company is over 100 years old and based in the Czech Republic, so these are European-made chisels. Now, you could do a whole lot worse than going with this brand. I'm looking at you, Buck Brothers. This set comes in at $140, which works out to be about $22 per chisel, factoring in some cost for this wooden presentation box. That's definitely not a cheap chisel. In fact, a set of chisels from the big box store can be as low as $4 per chisel. But on the other hand, you can spend way more than this, up to and above $100 for a single chisel in some of the premium chisel lineups. So why do you need chisels and what makes one good? Chisels like the one in this set are for fine detail work. Used in jobs where power tools are going to remove too much material too quickly or working in tight spaces that a power tool just won't reach. Some woodworkers prefer to work entirely with hand tools, which is cool if you've got that kind of time, but I prefer the hybrid approach. I let my power tools do the bulk of the work and then come in with a chisel to do the fine finishing touches. They have a fairly hard steel that do a good job of holding a sharp edge, beveled sides for getting into tight places like dovetails, and these beefy beech handles that can take a pounding, and they're oval shaped so they feel good in the hand and won't roll off the bench. These chisels are a great value for the price, but Narex does have an upper tier line of chisels. These are my Narex Richter chisels. So these are about twice as expensive per chisel, so what do you get for that extra money? Well, you're getting a more refined look and feel to the chisel. These are a little bit lighter weight and just a little more ergonomic, I think. They're also made of a harder steel, which means that these are going to hold an edge longer, meaning less trips to the sharpening station to keep your chisels sharp. So, would I make this recommendation? Yes, I look at this the same way that I looked at the combo squares. There are definitely different tiers of chisels, but this time the chatbot recommendation landed right in that Goldilocks zone. As a new woodworker, I wouldn't suggest investing in a high-end chisel set unless you plan on using them a whole lot. I just don't think you're going to realize the benefits that they offer at first with only occasional or hybrid use. But I do have a couple other suggestions. If you did want to check out a high-end chisel to know what they're like, you can just buy one chisel. I might suggest going with a 3/4 inch chisel or even a 1/2 inch chisel. Get it in your shop, try it out, and then at least you know what you're getting yourself into when you invest in an entire set of them. And then on the opposite end, I would absolutely recommend having a cheap, dirty beater chisel in your shop for scraping the glue off your bench or opening paint cans. Absolutely a handy tool to have around. So far, it looks like that's 2 out of 3 recommendations that I agree with.
Trust me, 2 out of 3 doesn't cut it.
And moving right along, we have a hammer. Initial thoughts? Yep, it's a hammer. Yep, looks like it works. All right, all kidding aside, I am nowhere near an expert in hammers, and that's because I'm a woodworker, and this is really a tool for general construction and DIY home repair. Look, this is the hammer that I've had for probably 25 years. It doesn't look 25 years old, well, except maybe for the wooden handle, but it looks that way because it's one of the least used tools in my entire shop. I mean, look, if I'm gonna drive a nail, I'm using this. Okay, sticking to the script, the features of this hammer are a steel one-piece forged body, a rip claw for pulling nails, and also got a nice grippy handle and a 16-ounce weight, which is a good weight for general purpose use. And Estwing is an American company that is also 100 years old. So is this a good recommendation? I guess the chatbot really doesn't understand the difference between woodworking and general construction, but I do, and I call this a big whiff. I definitely recommend everyone own a good hammer, and at $25, it's worth having this one around, just not in your shop. But there are a couple mallets that I find very useful for the shop that I think you should check out, beginning with the classic joiner's mallet. Now this is the stereotypical woodworker's mallet, very hefty, made out of white oak, and it's really good for heavy chopping action like with a mortising chisel. Now you can buy these online, and I'll leave a link down in the description below for one that I like, but it's kind of a rite of passage for woodworkers to make one of these themselves. Then there is the non-marring mallet, which is kind of like the baby brother to this one, but it's really better for cabinet work and furniture where you really need to get those joints together and, you know, be a little more precise than this guy, but not damage the work surface. And that's what that nice rubber head is for on the mallet. And then the other one is just a carving chisel. And this one is really good for fine detail work, you know, getting in with chisels or little carving tools where you can get up on the head of the mallet and get a lot of fine control. All right, so by my count, that is 2 good recommendations and 2 not so good recommendations made by the chatbot. And so it's all gonna come down to the 5th and final recommendation. So let's see what we have in the box. It is a Bosch 5-inch random orbit sander. Now, sanding and finishing is absolutely a critical part of any woodworking project, no matter your skill level. And so I'm glad to see that the chatbot put a random orbit sander on the list. And I happen to know that the Bosch is a good brand of sander because I already own one. So based on the reviews that I did when I purchased this sander the first time, it rated really well in 3 areas. The first one is noise. It is one of the quieter options, especially at this price point. Also dust collection. Out of the box, it comes with a 1 1/4 and 1 1/2 inch hose adapter, which is nice. And it also comes with this little canister filter, which I think is a good option for quick work in places where dust extraction is either inconvenient or impossible to get. Now, I don't think it's ideal because there's no actual dust extraction happening. It's just capturing the dust coming out of the back, but not really pulling any dust off of the workpiece as you're sanding it. So the next thing I think you should buy would be at least a shop vac to hook up to this sander when you're using it. But if that's not an option yet, go with the canister. And it also has low vibration. Now, I used to have an old DeWalt sander, and it had so much vibration in it that it actually began to affect my hand and arm sensation after using it for only about 30 minutes, which is honestly a very common amount of time to spend sanding your projects. Now, it's a 5-inch sander, which I think is good for tighter spaces. I do have some 6-inch random orbit sanders as well, which are good for better efficiency, but at the $40 to $80 price range, you're pretty much gonna get a 5-inch option. So would I make this recommendation? Absolutely, I would. After using this sander for a number of years, it is a really good product, especially at this price point. So as someone who does tool recommendations, should I be worried? Because, I mean, as it stands, I don't think our robot overlords did such a bad job here. What do you think? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know. Did you agree more with what the chatbot recommended, with what I recommended? Do you like this kind of video? Because maybe we can come up with some variations on this theme. And as always, until next time, have fun in the shop.